Hello and welcome to your class of English today. Today we'll be moving on with the explanation of the chapter called The Little Girl. But first of all, I must tell you that you guys have done a great job with the chapter tests. I've released your marks, and I'm sure it must have been a good way of revising whatever we've been learning, we've been teaching for a long time. And from today onwards, again, we'll start with the chapter explanations. And by the time we finish the PT1 syllabus, we'll again have chapter tests, and I'm sure it will help you to prepare properly for the actual PT1, that is the term exam in the month of July, if I'm not wrong. Yes, we'll be having that in the month of July. It's already June. So you guys are doing a good job. Let's start with the explanation. Well, for today's class, we have The Little Girl. This is the chapter that we have, which I'll be explaining. But please know this, that unless you read the chapter yourself, none of what I'm going to say now is going to make sense. All right. So for the subject of English, every chapter that I you know every chapter that I explain, every chapter that I put up slides or you watch a video, none of that would make sense unless you read the text. So I hope you read it now. You've already read it. That's great. If you plan to read it after, that's even great, but you should ideally read it before going into the explanation of the chapter. So this chapter is very simple. Look at the questions that the chapter begins with. Do you feel you know your parents better now than when you were much younger? Do you think you understand them? Perhaps you now understand the reason for some of their actions that used to upset you earlier. Now that you're in class 9, you have attained a certain age, you're 15, you're wiser. The question is, do you understand what they say? Hopefully you do. And this story is about a little girl whose feelings for her father, she used to be very scared of her father, and to a point that she really hoped that there were no fathers at all. She just didn't want a father, or maybe she wanted a better father. So the story is something about that. So here we begin. So it's called The Little Girl. The story begins with the girl's fright. Fright means being afraid, scared of her father. To the little girl, he was a figure to be feared and avoided. Every morning before going to work, he came into her room and gave her a casual kiss, to which she responded, "Goodbye, father." In the evening, he came home. She stood near the staircase and heard his loud voice in the hall. "Bring my tea into the drawing room. Hasn't the paper come yet, mother? Go and see if my papers are out there." You know, all those things. I'm sure you must have seen your parents come to work, be it your mother or your father. If both of them are working, or if any one of them are working, whenever they come back home, they have a set of things in their head. They want a few things done. So this was a very typical scene. And she had very little opportunity to actually connect, speak to her parents. On Sunday after, on the weekdays, both her parents were busy. She also had school. And on the weekends, Sundays, on Sunday afternoon, grandmother sent her down to the drawing room to have a nice talk with father and mother. Her grandmother, who was the person who took care of her, really wanted her to connect. The grandmother at least wanted her to go and speak to them. But the little girl always found mother reading and father stretched out on the sofa, his handkerchief on his face. And she really hated it. She thought, why are my parents ignoring me? And in a way that both of them are actually, trying to relax after a day of really hard work. What a mess. So I've titled this part "What a Mess" because something happens, some incident takes place. All right, so the incident is very simple in this case. The mess is very simple. She was creating a cushion for her father's birthday, and if you read this paragraph, one day she was kept indoors with the cold. With the cold. Her grandmother told her that her father's birthday was next week and suggested she could make him a pin cushion. Pin cushion are the smaller ones, not the ones that you sleep at night with, but the one that you keep in your sofas. Laboriously, the word laboriously means with a lot of hard work, like a laborer. With a double cotton, the little girl stitched 3 sides. You know how when you make a pillow, right, or a cushion, you stuff it in, right? So you stitch the three sides, you keep it one open, you put the stuff in, and then you stitch it closed. So she made the entire, the thing, the container, you could say. And then she was looking for something to be put in. She didn't have any clothes, she didn't have cotton or anything that is generally put, because it was supposed to be a small one. uh, that was okay, but what to fill it with, that was the question. The grandmother was out in the garden, so she wandered around and she found a great many sheets of fine paper. She found a lot of sheets at some part of her house, got all of them, chop, chop, chop. She really tore them into tiny pieces and stuffed the cushion and stitched it. Now, I don't know whether you have had this experience, whether as a child you have inadvertently messed up, damaged certain very important thing which a child does not understand. But I personally have done that, and I have seen one of my little boy that I knew, who one day wanted to make a paper plane, and he just took out a piece of paper that was on the fridge. On the top of the fridge, he just took the piece of paper, tore it into pieces, made a paper plane, and played with it. But luckily the paper plane was inside the house, and later on it was found out that that was a piece of important legal document of his mother. Right, there was a lot of mess. He was really scolded. And something very similar happens over here, right? I'm sure if you think, if you there are so many students in this class, someone must have done something like this when you were really young. Right, so it was later found out that the sheets of paper she used to fill the cushion up, they were really important documents for her father. And because they were really important, she got a lot of punishment. All right, if you look into wait yeah so if you look at the paragraph in the bottom, that night there was a hue and cry in the house. Father's great speech for the port authority. So those paper were a speech for her father. So we can say that he probably was a very important businessman, or a politician, or a lawmaker, or something like that. Had been lost. Rooms were searched, servants questioned, dot, dot, dot. I have not put the rest. It's for you to read and find out what happened. They really, nothing extraordinary happened. They just figured out that it was Kezia who actually did it. Right. Well, Kezia got punished for what she did, crying too much to explain. She lay in the shadow room watching. She was really, really, really scolded for messing up such an important document. Then father came to the room with a ruler in his hands. I'm going to beat you for this. Oh, no, 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 she screamed. Right? Sit up. So she really got it. She really got a rap on the knuckles, or on the hands, with the scale. That's really bad, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure her father gave her a lot of reasons for Kezia to be really scared of him, and to really, not like him, really hate him, or to be very, very frightful of that person. So it's very obvious that whatever feelings that Kezia had were very valid. I would say they were valid, because the behavior of the father were really like that. I mean, she did not do anything. She did not do the damage knowingly. It was an inadvertent mistake, and she didn't want to do it. That is what happened. Right. Well, so these are things that happen. She doesn't like her parents. One day she really, creates a lot of mess with the important papers. Then she also sees that there are better fathers, because, the McDonald's lived next door. They had 5 children. Looking through a gap in the fence, the little girl saw them playing tag in the evening. So she saw that the other children of her neighbor, the children used to play with the father, and she really felt that I don't like my dad at all. He's really bad. He's really harsh. He doesn't even play with me, and he punished me even when I did not do any mistake. That's bad, isn't it? Well, and now the story takes a turn. What happens is, one day her mother suddenly fell ill. Her grandmother took her mother to the hospital. So to stay back at night, it was only herself and her dad. You need to read this story to know how it progresses. The incident where the mother falls ill. And when she was made to go to bed, she said, "Oh my God, I'm very scared. I see nightmares sometimes. And I always have my grandmother to come and help me, or my mother to come and help me to sleep with me." All right. But that night, none of them were there. No grandmother, no mother. Only her dad was there, who she was very scared of. Obviously, she knew she couldn't sleep well, and just know at this point of time that it's pretty much a system in the West. In India, I'm not really sure. Children sleep in a separate room. They have a separate room right from when they're really young. So, proceeding the story, the same old nightmare came. The butcher with a knife and a rope. This is the nightmare she saw. There was a butcher. There was a knife. There was a rope. Really bad. Who came nearer and nearer, smiling that dreadful smile. Grandma, grandma. She woke shivering. So she had a bad dream. She saw a nightmare. And this is what you need. You need to pause the video and see how the father actually came back to help her, and they formed a connection. Her dad helped her go to sleep. He was not a bad man after all. Tried out, he slept before the little girl. Her father came from the other room when he heard her scream, tried to help her. Both of them went to bed. Poor father, not so big after all, and with no one to look after him. He was harder than grandmother, but in a nice hardness. What's the matter? Her father asked. Another dream? So her father actually came and stayed back with her on a bed to help her go to sleep, but he himself went to sleep because he was so tired. Oh, said the little girl, my head's on your heart. My head's on your heart. I can hear it going. What a big heart you've got, dear father. This is how the story comes to an end. It really ends really well. Please remember that you need to read the text. Nothing would make sense otherwise. Well, thanks for watching.